Now, why? Why is this happening? Well, basically, usually what happens is, in terms of the recap, I want to give you something very important that you need to understand. And what you need to understand is who is actually paying for those tariffs. Why? Well, because originally, they all told us the following. They said, hey, do you know who's going to be paying the tariffs? You are going to be paying the tariffs. And it's going to be expensive, and it's going to create inflation. It said a bunch of things. But what's really happening? Who is really paying for those tariffs? That's the questions. The question that everybody wants to know. Harvard Business School analysis indicates imported goods 3% in price from March to mid-July, especially for goods from China, Mexico, and Canada. Goldman Sachs projected that 70% of tariffs costs will eventually be passed to consumers. What's going on? What is going on? Because right now, the companies are paying the tariffs. Right now, the US firm are absorbing most costs so far with little price adjustment from foreign importers or final consumer. Why? General Motors reported 1.1 billion tariff hits. Custom brokers and logistic firms face additional costs. But the number two to get hit is going to be you, the consumer. Harvard Business School analysis indicates imported goods rose 3% in March, but Goldman Sachs project that 70% of the tariff costs will eventually be passed to consumer. Why is Goldman Sachs saying that? Well, because usually US consumers and businesses pay the vast majority of tariffs. That's what they don't understand, not the foreign countries. You know, the way tariff works, and this is the funny thing, is that, you know, it's a tax on an import. So at the end of the day, it's collected by US Custom and Border Protection, right? And the foreign exporter does not pay the tariff directly. Who ultimately? The US importer, initially, but then eventually the US consumer. But yet, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. And by the way, I think you need to understand that. So you mean this is not news? Like most people did not know about this? No, it was expected. Well, how come we didn't hear about it? You know, most economists and trade analysts expect U.S. firms would bear the brunt of the tariffs. But that's not really what we've heard, right? We didn't hear that story. Why is this expected? Because there's historical precedent, you know, like in the 2019 tariff. That's what he did, and that's what happened, and that's what happened. Eventually, the people paid those tariffs because it went up. So what happened here? What was it not reported? Well, the fact that U.S. businesses, and this is the piece that you need to understand, pay most tariff have been well documented, but hasn't been widely reported or emphasized in headline for several key reasons. And this is what you need to understand, and this is what you need to analyze, and this is what you need to understand: risk. Political framing simplified the narratives. The politician, basically across parties, especially in the campaign, framed the tariff as a way to make China and Europe pay. They're abusing us, we're going to pay, they're going to pay, even though the economic burden is domestic. This message was simple, it was popular, it was nationalistic, so everybody bought it. Say, that's right, let them pay for it, even today, right? What happened yesterday with Europe, now they're paying 15%, yeah, let them pay for it. No, you're going to pay for it. Media coverage often reported political sound bites rather than correcting them with economic nuances. We are collecting billions from China when in reality, the US Treasury collected billions from US importers. It's an attack on the businesses. It's an attack on the businesses that are going to employ you. Tariff costs are hidden in business margin. And that's why I want to we need to together understand what the real story here is, because obviously prices are not going to spike overnight. And Trump knew that. It doesn't create headlines. You know, eventually it's going to sip through. Eventually it's going to sip through the corporations. Media focus on trade battles, not trade mechanism. Coverage focused mostly on geopolitical narratives, retaliatory tariffs, former subsidy, headline tariff announcement, and the academic findings are often underreported. Key research clearly showed tariff incidence on U.S. firm and household, but these studies often stayed in policy or academic circle. They were rarely translated into newsroom. And that's what you heard. You heard what they wanted you to hear. And it's going to come through eventually. Why? Well, take a look at GM, for example. GM took a huge hit recently, took $1 billion hit because they're paying tariffs. Not China. GM is paying tariffs. They are the one paying the tariffs right now. So the tariff are staying at the company level and the company is paying. Of course, you're going to say, but that's not fair. No, it is fair because that's how it is. It's a tax. And obviously, by the time Trump is done, then all these things are going to come through. The worry that what you should be worried about, without understanding, the mechanics of the tariffs and who's paying, what you need to know, one, is that the price is going to come down. So you're going to pay more for it. You're going to pay more for it, or if the company pays more, then the company is going to get hit. And if you work for that company, you're going to get hit, right? So everybody gets hit at this point. Now, what's going to happen is as it permeates through the system, the prices are going to rise. In fact, I will tell you, there is this research that the Wall Street Journal did not too long ago, and it basically shows that a company what is that company called? Amazon, right? Amazon has basically, let me give you the actual numbers because that's something, it could help you right now to really understand what's happening. But Amazon has started raising its prices quite a bit. And that's going to become expensive. Even though they also say that tariffs are being picked up by corporate America right now, what's going to happen is the pricing is going to come through very soon. Let me show you the article, but basically what they're doing, they raise prices through 2,600 items. So Amazon is already raising its prices. What is the point of this video? The point of this video is to say, who is paying for the tariffs? Right now, GM is paying, the importers, right? The US importers are paying for the tariffs. But ultimately, and this is not like a secret. Everybody knows that. Except that again, and this is something that I always say, when you're listening to whomever you're listening to, usually they're not telling you the whole story. They're telling you one story. If they're on the right, they will tell you they're going to pay and they're going to help us make America great again, which is true in the short term. Trump is going to collect $300 billion. I mean, at the end of the day, the U.S. administration is collecting the money. From whom? That's a question. They're not getting the money from China. Right? They're getting from whomever the importer is, which usually is GM or an American company that's trying to make a buck here. So they're going to be paying for it. And they're the one that are going to get hurt. And if you work for that company, ultimately you're going to get hit too. But right now the headline is Trump is winning, which is true. It is true. And the U.S. is going to collect. Now, of course, it has been proven that ultimately they're going to pass the prices down to the consumer. Why? Well, they have to do it, right? Because if they don't pass it and they keep it up there, their margins are going to get hit. I will tell you that very recently, that who do we have? Tariffs are being picked up by corporate America. That is a fact. Who is currently paying those tariffs? Well, basically, General Motors reported a 1.1 billion tariff hit in the second quarter. Profit margins are being squeezed without consumer prices hikes yet. So why don't they pass it on to the consumer right away? The reason they're not doing it, is because they want to make sure that it is sticking before they actually pass it on to you. What does that mean? Well, it's too soon to feel the impact, but basically They want, they're paying, I mean, the US consumer, and ultimately you're going to pay for it. But the reason, they are not paying is because they want to protect market share. And especially for the large item. When you talk about a car, you got to be careful. You got to take it easy. You got to take it slow, right? Because if you start raising and moving your prices up and down, it's going to impact your margin. But don't you think the US administration knew that? Of course they knew that. They knew this was going to happen. I mean, they've studied finance like I have, and they know that ultimately the little guy is going to pay for it. But in the immediacy and in because they created so much uncertainty, they knew that the importer, like GM or whatever, would take it in the chin, or Apple or whatever, because they did not want to get hit. Or they did not imagine you raise your prices 20%. Car just went up 20. I'm not buying this car. Ford didn't raise its prices, so Ford is cheaper in my mind. They got to be extremely careful. That's why this whole business with the tariffs is not as easy as sitting down and saying 15, 25, or whatever. It's a very complex process that needs to be thoroughly understood because it impacts everyone. Economists have been watching for signs that who will bear the cost. Would it be foreign suppliers by cutting prices? Or would it be the U.S. businesses? It is becoming increasingly clear that U.S. businesses, but when they write this article, they know very well that what's going to happen. They know very well, but ultimately it's going to be the company. In a competitive market, a company that hikes prices could lose market share to a rival. Like it keeps its price steady. This was a brilliant piece. You have to understand that they didn't decide, let's raise prices. No, they say, okay, we're going to raise prices, and what's going to happen? Well, Mr. President, it depends how you do it. If you create confusion, and they don't know what to do, what they will do nothing, right? Because they don't want to raise prices, especially when you're talking about 30%, 50%, some ridiculous numbers. Meanwhile, while you're talking up and down, they're still paying. So great. So then let's do that. Let me create confusion and let them pay for it in the meantime, 10, 20% until there's enough confusion. Then after the while, we'll see. And that's what he's been doing, which is great, and it's working. And listen, this is strategy. This is business 101. You get away what you can get away with. And that's exactly what's happened. Now, of course, you have to think the second. Now, what else? Why else they didn't raise their prices? Because they want to manage inflation expectation. Major corporations know that raising prices contribute to broader inflation, which can trigger Fed action. Right? Suppose they all start raising prices. You have inflation. What is the Fed going to do? They're going to raise the rates, which is going to impact their ability to actually get financing. So they're all thinking ahead. Okay, what's going to be the implication? You have to realize, and you need to think like they do, that you have to think 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead as to who is going to do what and when. I like the brick and wall better, and it makes more sense. You don't like the background of the colors. Who likes the background of the colors? Double times. But some people say it's like in a basement. No, it's a studio. But I figure I give the color, make it more interesting. Let me see if I get both, and then I'll give you what you guys want. So basically, the third thing to avoid is avoid repricing and restructuring costs. Why? Constantly updating the pricing model as prices go up and down, and the confusion that reigns is mostly disruptive. Many firms choose to absorb the cost temporarily. I think what they're doing, and I think Europe is kind of doing the same thing. They say, listen, how long is he going to be around? Because they know that he's holding this whole house together. He's holding this whole concept together, Trump. He's out there like he's in Scotland today. I mean, this is a great tour. And I think they're saying, we don't want a war with Europe. When the next guy is going to come in, he's not going to do that. So let's just, yes, okay, fine, 50%. Let's take it in the chin. No, I will tell you that right now in Europe, they are pissed. When I mean Europe, I mean Germany is pissed. France is pissed. All these people are pissed at van der Leyen, who basically said, hey, Greta Garbage, that basically saying that this is ridiculous. You should have fought harder. Now, of course, it's easy, right, to talk about this after the fact. It's easy to tell that woman, what the hell you do for? You should have gone to war with him. Are you sure you want to do that? Because Trump was about to give 30%. He doesn't care, unless you want to call his bluff. You know, they used to call it taco trade, the taco trade, the taco trade, and you bought it, right? Yeah, yeah. Trump basically says yes, and then he says no. He's not gonna. Oh my God, he's actually doing it. Oh my God, he's serious. Oh my God, he actually bombed Iran. You know what I mean? And that's what he does. And that's why you must never look the left hand. You have to look at the right hand. It's like three-card Monty, right? You have to, like right now, everybody's saying, oh, 15%, this is going to be great. The money is going to come in. What you should be looking for is what's happening after. It has been shown that eventually these prices are going to go up. Now, why are these people doing it? They want to avoid repricing, restructuring. They have long-term contracts. Right? Many importers have locked-in supply contracts, meaning they can easily pass the tariff cost to the upstream suppliers or renegotiate prices. The expectation, and that's the one that you need to look for, expectation of policy reversal. Firms may believe current tariffs are temporary due to pending lawsuit, election, global trade renegotiations. I believe and prefer to ride out the short-term pain. This is especially true in industry with political visibility like auto, agriculture, and tech. Suppose you're the chair of Ford, right? And Trump comes to you and says, I'm going to raise prices. You're going to tell him, well, it's going to cost me. Listen, you made enough money, right? It's going to hurt for a little bit, but I need to have an agenda to put through. And who knows, maybe loans or whatever, subsidies like he did to his former friend, Elon Musk. So what do? You agree, right? The thing is, and this is what this channel is about, and don't forget to subscribe. This channel is about explaining to you, well, I'm telling you the news, but it's not the news you've heard. What I want to go is what's going on behind it. The news is we have tariffs. And who's paying? Well, they're paying. No, China is not paying anything. The importer is paying. Ford is paying. GM is paying. Amazon is paying some of this stuff, right? Because the money gets passed to the exporter, right? To the person that's bringing into the country because they're the one paying. It's easy to see from the top down. Correct. We'll see. Margin is still sufficient for now. And Trump said, listen, you made enough money. I will tell you that one reason Trump did all this is because companies like Apple, for example, Apple has made millions of dollars, billions of dollars, and hasn't paid any taxes. Check it out. They haven't paid any taxes. So what does that mean? It means that Trump wants to collect from these people. He wants to collect from mass corporations. Now, of course, you have to be careful, right? If you collect too much and you tax too much, and you don't have the people that's going to buy the product, and you don't have the withhold, then that's going to cost you. That's going to be more expensive. That's going to be a problem. That's going to be a lot of damage, and that impacts jobs. Now, what's probably going to happen, I believe now, that they're basically waiting for Trump to go away, or basically waiting for 2026 when they think he's going to lose control of the House. Or they're hoping that this Ghislaine Maxwell thing becomes an issue. And knowing what that tariff is going to affect and when you take them off. Well, you know when the tariffs are going to take, well, don't forget, he was there in Europe this weekend. He didn't sign anything. They agreed, right, in front of everyone. Now, there's a misunderstanding right now in terms of the pharmaceutical item. According to Europe, it's not included. Trump said it was included, then they said it's not. It's a little bit uncertain right now, and we shall see. We shall see what happens. We'll see. But it would appear to be that right now, she's basically telling them, listen, I am not a stupid woman. I know he's a bully. But quite frankly, we rely heavily on the U.S. tremendously. We have it's a very heavy trading background. So we need to do it. So this percent tariffs, believe it or not, the reason they've agreed, if you were to look at a chart, the other countries will eat those tariffs. But that's the point. They're going to pass the cost of the tariff to the importer. That's usually what happens. Who's paying? Okay, let me tell you. So you're a French person that makes wine, right? And unless you bring it yourself directly into the US on your own plane and then you pay. But most of the time, you bring it to a supply in the US, right? And that US one brings into custom, and that's when it gets paid. So usually it's the importer that pays it, not those countries. And that's what I mean when I said that this is the story that you hear. They are going to pay. Listen, right now, GM is paying $1 billion. That's what GM is paying. Not, why is GM paying $1 billion in tariffs? What, China? GM is not based in China, right? No, the importer is paying for it, not the country, right? Now, of course, the thing is, once they bring it in, they're going to be charged for it, right? They're going to charge and then the surprise is, well, listen, I'm going to pay 15%, so I'm giving you less. I said, no, I'm still saying, I mean, they're going to be a discussion between the country and the importer. They're going to decide who takes the 15%. But if you're a GM and you want to sell cars, that's what's going to happen. I don't think the consumer will pay. Well, Elsa, I had to tell you, but historically speaking, it always brings it down to the consumer. Why do you think it was only 3%? They were paying almost nothing historically. Why? Because there was nothing because the US is paying 3 and they were paying 3. Even though I have to say, and this is where Trump has a point, if you were to look at the charts of export versus imports, frankly, the US, right, imports about 300 billion and export 166. So they have a trade deficit with Europe, and they're trying to fix that by either not bring it to Europe, come over directly. So he wants to reduce that trade deficit. Countries in Canada have had tariffs on America for years and years. Yes, and the US has been paying for it, except now you're saying no more. Now, there's no bad guy and good guy here, right? It's not like 300% for some items. Yes, it's not like Trump is a bad person and the other people are good people, right? No, it's not like that. Maybe is the thing with Trump is because his approach is a bit he coerces you into doing something, and this is something that people don't like. They don't like and he's not very personable. He's full of it looks like, right? I mean, but the point is, 166 export to Europe, 300 billion import from Europe. So the US is a trade deficit, meaning they're bringing more. Who cares? That means that the US is not making the stuff. And when you're not making stuff, you forget how to make them. And what do you think the Europe is doing it? Because the US were paying them, right? And paying them to export to build. And of course, they're pissed now because van der Leyen basically said, I'm going to invest, and I'm going to have a call on that pretty soon, but I'm going to invest 600 billion in the US because Trump says, we got to make stuff here. Unfortunately, these things take time. It's not like, and I will talk about the Japan thing, but you're not going to bring 600 million just like that, and then 600 billion on Monday, and then on Tuesday we start making. No, it's going to take years, and they know it. There is no tariff cost. No, there is a tariff cost. It's going to be 15%. We are out of your account pennies in some things and forgives trillion in other things. Well, that's true too, right? Don't forget. Right now, Trump is going to collect about an additional between 200 and 300 billion dollars. This is going to almost half for the budget deficit this year. The budget for the U.S. But what you're not seeing is that if you believe history, and this is what I'm here for to kind of explain to you, if you believe history and if you believe what has been written and what has been seen, and even what happened in the first Trump administration when he raised tariffs on China, this was paid, right? U.S. right now, the U.S. importer are paying for it, right? But ultimately, Harvard Business School analysis indicates that imported goods rose 3% in March to mid-July, which is not a lot. You probably didn't see it. You probably didn't realize that Amazon is raising price on 2,600 items, small items. But Goldman Sachs project that 70% of tariff costs will eventually be passed to consumer, as business can't continue absorbing losses indefinitely. I mean, either you pay for it or you lose your job because that company just is paying more and more. According to Deutsche Bank, U.S. consumers are next in line for price increase. The question is, but it's not happening. So on the right, they're telling you basically they're going to pay for it, and like Lisa said, but then on the left side, the left is telling you you're going to pay, you're going to pay, you're going to see it's going to be bad, inflation is coming, and blah blah blah. The only difference this time around, and this is because it's Trump, they're not passing the cost down. So it's difficult for them to argue that inflation is coming. It's difficult. Contrary to the administration's claim, there is no strong evidence that exporters are significantly lowering prices to shield U.S. buyers. They don't care about the U.S. buyers. In a few cases, like steel, exporters lowered price somewhat, but U.S. households still paid some overall. So basically what we're looking at, Yale Budget Lab estimates that how much is it going to cost you? Estimate an average effective rate of about 20%, leading to if you have a tariff of 20%, you're going to have a 2% increase in price level in 2025, costing you about $2,700. Tax Foundation is basically saying $1,600. This is going to cost you between $1,600 to about $2,700. Why? Because eventually it needs to pass you through. So what are we learning in this process? If you just bear with me for a second, what we're learning from this process is that you must understand what is really happening. And what is really happening, I hate to say it, but basically you are being sold the bill of goods. You were told that they are going to pay for it. We are going to make America great again, which is true. They are paying, and they're pissed because at some point that 15% or 30% or 50% need to get passed through the consumer. Is this because you are trying to explain tariffs are what they are not? Yes, tariff. It's so interesting how it takes you so long to explain a simple. Well, it's not taking me a simple concept. I'm not just explaining what the tariffs are. We all know the tariff. They come, they charge. What I'm telling you is making 2 points. The first one is that the person that is paying right now is GM. The U.S. companies are paying. The second one is going to be you. You're going to be paying for it. Is this a surprise? And that's the third point I'm making, that it is not a surprise. It should not be a surprise, right? Because that always has been the case. If you look at analysis that were done in the past, things that we have seen, it usually does not matter, right? Usually what's happening is then how come you didn't know about it, Because I heard someone said they're going to pay for it. No, they're not going to pay for it. The fact that U.S. business and consumers pay most tariff has been well documented. That's a fact. But it hasn't been widely reported. Why? Because it's not in their interest to report it. If you're Fox News, you're not going to say things like that, right? If you're CNN, you're going to say that inflation is coming, but yet that's not happening either. And this is the strength of Trump. Somehow he's able to contain everything by himself. And I told you, this is the issue. The risk that you're having is that when is it that Trump going to lose control? Now, why these countries are agreeing, and that's another point I want to make, they're agreeing because they figure this is going to go away. The guy's crazy, right? We can't keep paying 15%. China is paying 50%. In fact, today they're in Switzerland to talk about it. Companies might be decreasing profits but losing money. Well, Trump basically said, listen, especially he probably went to Apple, said, listen, you guys are making way too much money to begin with. You haven't been paying, and check it out. You haven't been paying taxes for a while. So I think it's time for you to pay taxes. And that's what's happening, right? Basically, there is a political framing to simplify the narratives, right? Politicians across the party frame tariff as a way to make China and Europe pay. Okay, so you're charging, yeah, they're going to pay, even though the economic burden is domestic. That's why no one actually pays, messed around too much with the tariffs, because ultimately you end up paying yourself. I mean, the people. This message was simple and popular. And this is the thing, right, that they tell you all the time. They always tell you the easy thing for you to understand. And you're listening and you said, okay, but that's not what's really happening. It's like, for example, in the stock market, right? If you want to go in the stock market and you open the Wall Street Journal and say, wow, I got all this news and information and analysis. And you look at the stuff online everywhere. Who is actually telling you about the amount of risk that's involved in the stock market? How do you know, right? You should be focused, like I always said, when you're crossing the street, your primary goal is not to go across the street, is to make sure you don't run over. Hopefully that's what you do. And that's what you should be doing when you involve the stock market. And that's what you should do when you're listening to this news of the 15%. I mean, not in the deal, right? But you have to worry about it. If you're at GM, Ford, and all these people, and you have to start thinking that you have to keep around maybe around $2,000, because all this stuff is going to cost you more. I could tell you for a fact that right now, Amazon has been raising prices on small items. So you probably didn't notice it. The media is focused on the trade battles, not the trade mechanism. Right? Everybody's telling you, look at all the picture of Trump and her shaking hands, right? Wow, he gave it to you. And then the European on the other side, believe it, and this, it's like, great, make them pay, blah, blah, blah. Over there, basically what they're telling is, what the hell was she doing? She's a wuss. She's a wuss. She got handed to her, right? They're making fun of her, basically. But no one is saying, but guys, yeah, but, don't worry too much about it, because all that is going to be passed on to the consumer. And what they're pissed about, and they should be, is that she also agreed to invest in the US. And Trump realizes that he can't tell these people, come over. Trump crazy. Companies might be... No, Trump is not crazy. Trump knows exactly what he's doing, right? He knows exactly. So what's happening, he realized that at the beginning when they were saying, hey, let's bring some money, come and build in the US. And he realized, you know what? This is not going to work out. I mean, by the time, I'll be dead by the time they come over. And Trump is not nuts. Trump is, well, he's abrasive. I dealt with people like that. He's abrasive. He comes in and he gets what he wants. He says, well, can't you make it easy? No, I don't have to make it easy on him. I'm the boss. The US has 25% GDP. You're going to pay, because otherwise we're out of here. Okay, I guess we have to pay, right? But basically what they're doing, they're coming over, and Trump, I believe that Trump realized, in fact, I think that's something that we're gonna need to address separately. I think that basically what happened is that Trump essentially realized that I can't have them start building, but give me cash instead. And that's what probably happened. He probably said, give me cash. No, but we'll come over and build, make America great again. We'll build some European plant. No, don't do that. Give me $600 billion. And that's what he did with and I'll have a video on that. He literally got cash from Japan and said, here's, I think it's 550 billion. Use it for whatever you want to use it for. It's great, isn't it? It's like a slush fund. Academic findings are often underreported. You don't read academic papers, right? But basically, key research, IMF, FED, clearly showed tariff incidence on US firms and households. But these studies often stayed in policy and academic circles. Who wants to hear about that? Don't forget, when you listen to Bloomberg, when you listen to all these other online, they hear to like, whoa, look at this, like I'm doing the pictures in the back. Whoa, look, it's red. What's going on? Well, what's really going on is, we want to make America great again, and we're going to make them pay for it, okay? And that's what's happening. Look, you got 15%, you got it done, and the stock market is up, and rates are going to low, so what's wrong with that? What you need to worry about, what happens next, and this is what this channel is about. Japan is the largest holder of US debt, nothing here. That's interesting that you bring this up, Evolved Monkey. Because right now, the largest. In fact, the Europeans said it yesterday. I heard them. They said basically we should have pushed more on the fact that we should have pushed more on the debt, on financing U.S. debts. Maybe we didn't have to do that. In fact, right now, China, Japan used to be the largest holder of debt. Japan still is. Japan, not the largest. China has now gone below. China is now below the UK. What does that mean? Basically, they're pressuring the US. And how do you pressure the US? Well, you pressure the US in a very simple way. You're basically telling the US, I am not going to help finance all that debt. And because of that, the prices of your debt is going to go up. Always look at the 10-year yield. It's going to go up, and it's going to make it more expensive for you to finance all this. And it's going to force you to issue dollars. I know it gets a bit complicated, but basically, we want to force you to issue dollars, and you're going to pay for your debt, which is going to debase your currency, which is going to make it worse on you. Mark Carney, Canada PM, started this. Well, he has been a huge disappointment, right? They thought that he was going to come in. In fact, all of them said, including the European, we're going to show him what it is. We're going to blah, 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 blah. Meaning that that's political stance to show to their people that, I'm serious about fighting Trump. And recently, I will tell you that, and I didn't dream this, he actually mentioned Canada, basically stated that on July, Canada PM Carney signaled the U.S. tariffs might be here to stay. It is the first time the Canadian Prime Minister has raised the possibility that U.S. tariffs may remain in place. There's no talking to this guy. There's no talking to him. Now, of course, he's not too concerned. Canada should not be too concerned because 80% of the tariffs right now in Canada are basically protected from those tariffs because it's part of the North American Trade Agreement. But if you're in Canada, watch out. Not the first time at all. He said that from the start. Yeah, I mean, he said basically, China has sold most bonds. That is true. China doesn't want, and you know who's buying them? UK. Isn't that a coincidence? And they got the best deal ever. They got 10%. I will say something, and I think they realize what they are. They work, and the same way I realized already that the way you deal with Trump is you have to be his best friend, and you have to be 100% committed. If you're not 100% committed, then you're 0%. Okay, you need to be 100% committed with Trump. Look what happened to J.D. Vance. Have you seen him lately? Right? He questioned Trump when he said that everything was destroyed in Iran and everything was not destroyed in Iran. He's gone. Now we have the, what's her name? The advisor that came back. She's the secretary, the defense advisor. She brought the whole thing with Obama, which we should talk about that as well. She brought the whole thing with Obama, saying that Obama did this, Obama did that, and for a while she wasn't even around because she also mentioned it, that frankly at the end of the day we're not so sure everything got destroyed. The point with Trump is that you need to be 100%. He's doing the tariff because of Pete Navarro. Navarro went, Tulsi Gabbard, yes, saying Joe, Tulsi Gabbard. She disappeared because she also said, well, and rightfully so, quite frankly, they've shown that 8, and this is one of the risks that I have, by the way, which is risk number 6. That 800 pound of uranium is running around and we don't know what it is. Supposedly it's been destroyed, but very unlikely because they saw it moving in and out just before the bombing. And then at the same time, coincidentally, there was a report that came out that was not supposed to come out and basically said that maybe you delayed it for a couple of weeks. And Tulsi Gabbard, picked up on it, and the VP picked up on it, because he wants to be president. He wants to be, and these people want to be close to the MAGA. I mean, if I know that, I'm sure they know. They don't want to piss off the MAGA people, because at the end of the day, Trump's Achilles heel is his MAGA base. And they are very pissed at him right now, believe it or not. They're pissed at him because of the Ukraine deal. Even though we're selling to the Ukrainian, we're not done yet. You're getting involved in this war. We told you we don't want that. And two, you were supposed to tell us about what happened with Ghislaine Maxwell. That's not over yet. Be careful. That could become a thing. And that, if that becomes a thing, all of these people, which are basically saying, in terms of the tariffs, give him what he wants, he's going to go away eventually. How is he going to go away? He probably not going to win, I mean, not him, but he's probably going to he's going to lose Congress next year. And if he loses Congress, then we're back to, doing business as usual. Because no one really wants to mess around with the tariffs that much. Why? Well, you need to understand that tariffs, using tariffs as a political and geopolitical tool, shift the traditional tariff paradigm. The tariff was supposed to be the most boring thing in the world. It's only for eating economic objectives, revenue generation, protecting domestic industry. But this approach significantly altered the dynamics, motivation, and impact of tariffs. You're messing around with the wrong thing. Hi, Salingra, Gray, 69. That you're messing around with something that is supposed to be, historically, tariffs were primarily used to raise government revenue or protect domestic industries, right? But this shift redefined tariff as instrument of coercion. Do you understand the difference with coercion and negotiation? Coercion is, you used to pay me 2%, now you're going to give me 30%. And they're saying, you're nuts. Well, because basically what you're saying is, if you say 50, 100%, nobody's going to pay 50, 100%. So then all that's going to happen is then you have to deal with the US company because you're not going to import anything. So you lose the whole US business. You don't want that either. But you're coercing, you're strong-hogging me, and this is where people sometimes get pissed at Trump. You are strong-hogging me into making a deal that I'm not willing to make. But for example, Canada, 75% of export comes from Canada. It comes from the US to Canada. You can't say no to that. You have to agree. And the tit for tat, it's a protection. It's a protection. You know what? That's exactly what it is. That's what they used to do. The mob would come in and they would tell you, you want to make a building, you want to build a building? Go ahead, but you got to use my guys and you got to use my trucks. Otherwise, you're not building anything. Why not? Because you can't. And that's exactly what he did with those countries. He said, you are 75%, I'm 75% of your business, then you're going to pay me, or ultimately the people, but the way it's presented is you are going to pay me 15, 20%. And they're saying, no, if I'm not paying you, I'll lose your business completely. So they don't want to do it. But then ultimately they kind of have to do it. So it's very simple. I mean, and the subscribers before was right. Tariffs is the simplest thing in the world. It's just that it was never used like that before. It was never used as a way to coerce rather than purely economic tools, prioritizing strategy objectives over economic efficiency. And it introduces unpredictability. This is the reason why GM is, okay, I still have to sell cars and I still need the parts, right? I can't wait until they negotiate to sell parts because we're going to lose a lot of money. And if I lose money, I got to fire people, then you have a recession on your hands. And that's where the stock market collapsed. So Trump said, okay, take your time, but it's going to happen. And now it's happening. The point is now you have, I guess, certainty. And the certainty itself is great, but at the end of the day, the US consumer is going to pay. But it is coercion, and this is why people are pissed at Trump. Now, is he going to get away with it? Well, he is getting away with it. Right? But long term, these companies are either going to wait for him to go away, or two, they're going to start to build. They're going to build other outlines. But that takes time. You know, the winemakers, and I think they're going to be paying 15% in Europe. Those people, what do you think is going to happen, right? They were basically selling to the US. It took 20 years to 30 years to build a business in the US. You can't suddenly say, hey, you know what? Let's sell it to China. The, no, because you don't understand the business. The business is a lot more complicated. It's going to take time. It's going to take time to find another person, to find. So the bottom line for you is this, because this, at the end of the day, we understand, we analyze, we teach a little bit in the process, but then we say, okay, what do I do with all that information? Number one, rates are going to drop. Either tomorrow or the day after, but if they don't, you're going to have a descent at the Fed. That's going to be a big mess. And if that doesn't happen now, the day after, Trump is basically going to say, okay, I got a new Fed chair, and he's going to lower the rate. So forget this Fed chair, focus on new guy, and the new guy is going to do it. If the Fed chair doesn't resign, okay. The second thing that's going to happen, and that's definite, inflation is going to come up. Those prices are going to come through. The question is, we don't know exactly when. Rates are not going down. Well, when we say by rates, we're talking about the rate set by the Federal Reserve, which is the federal fund rate, which has nothing to do with your daily life, but it sets the tone for all the rates in the US. Right now, you've got 7 governors and 5 president of the Fed. That's 12 plus a Fed chair. They're going to meet the day after tomorrow, and they're going to have to decide what to do. I could tell you right now, that 2 of the governors will descend. It will be the first time since 1993. So Trump is destabilizing. He's also coercing the Fed in many ways, and he's destabilizing the Fed. So far, that technique has worked pretty well. Let's see if it works for the Fed, but he's using the same technique. You know, he's going there, visiting them, doing an implication, checking how much gold is in Fort Knox, believe it or not. But the point is, rates are going to have to come down because there's no proof, there's no inflation, right? There's none. So if there's no inflation, at least that as measured by the CPI, you can't keep rates high like that. Otherwise, you are politically motivated, and this is kind of what they're saying. They're basically making the point with this guy that, meaning Bassett is making the point that in 2021, and you made a mistake and you admitted, and you're such a great person for it, but you did not raise the rates when inflation was going up. Of course, it was a Biden administration. I'm not saying, I'm just telling you, I'm reporting the information here. Then, in 2024, when you thought Kamala was going to become president, you lowered the rates very conveniently. And since then, so Trump is saying you're motivated, and that's where they're going after him. You see, you should be lowering the rates then. This is not logical. Okay, unless you're politically motivated, but now obviously not only you're politically, but you're personally motivated because you probably can't stand Trump anymore. You can't stand the guy because you're pissed at him and things like that. So, but they're gonna have to lower those rates. Now, of course, and this is the where it gets complicated, and this is where the channel could become very helpful to you, is that what's going to happen is in the meantime, you've got the inflation, the 15%, are going to start permeate through the company, and they're probably going to pass it on to the consumer just at the time when you are getting your rates down. Both parties do the same tactics. I agree, right? Like right now, remember when Trump was there, this is Lost Tribe that says that. And he's right, because when the Democrats were there, it was Russia, Russia, Russia. Remember that? And now that Trump is in power, it's Obama, Obama, Obama. Now, I guess it depends who you believe and who you're for. But this is what they're doing. They're giving that for a personal consumption. Evolved monkey does not true at all. Well, I mean, they're both using it to their advantage. Never think that these people thinks about themselves. Doesn't matter which side you're on. I mean, you just have, if you're lucky enough to be on the side where it's helping you right now, it's great. But no one has the the truth in their hands and say, okay, I am the holder of the truth. Not even remotely true. But then again, you're right. That you're entitled to your opinion, and we'll see. We shall see. But mark my words, rates are going to go down. The Fed is probably this guy's probably going to leave, and then they're going to pass down those costs. But it's not like they're going to pass it and you're going to see it, right? It's not like you saw the 15% increase, big news everywhere, 15%. When they're passing the costs down, you're not going to see it. It's not going to be announced. It's going to come a little bit here. It's going to come a little bit there. In fact, it's happening right now with Amazon, who raised price on 2,600 items. It's going to happen very, very slowly, and you're not going to see it. Right now, who's actually raising prices? Nike, Walmart, Macy, and Best Buy, these retailers implementing selective surgical price increases. They are being very and extremely careful. All of these people are very careful because Trump is going to make a big deal. They don't want any problem with him. What else is happening? Walmart executives confirmed they raised prices in June. Did you see it? Did you notice it? I didn't notice it. Reversing earlier discounts in key categories like toys and appliances. As tariff cost hits margin. It is happening, but very, very gently. Nike flag at raising prices, though selectively. Everybody's being very careful. Now, who's not raising prices? Home Depot, TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and Home Goods, and TJ Group. So these people are not raising their prices, but most of everyone is doing it slowly. And obviously, when it comes to GM, you have to be careful because if it's a car company, it's huge, right? You can't really afford to do it. And that's kind of where this is going. Where this is going is we are going to be involved in a process that's going to be very slow, but it's permanent, but it's going to happen. So what do you do with your portfolio in the meantime? What do you do with your stocks? Market is up right now. And this is why in my Patreon channel, I selected a bunch of small company stocks, small caps, not too expensive, meaning P ratio very low, because you need to be invested. Who knows? I don't want to be FOMO. FOMO, fear of missing out. You don't want to be FOMO, right? You don't want to be in that category. You want to be auto price outrageous. Well, you haven't seen anything yet. Although right now, I will tell you, Tesla has a great deal going because nobody wants the car. 3.9%, whatever. I should have them sponsor this channel because 3.5% financing. You have the $7,500 if you want to drive a electric car. But the point is, all these things are going to permeate right through the system. And the question is, well, then what's really going on? Why is it that you aren't passing the tariffs? Well, because frankly, like I told you before, they don't want to. I think overall they don't want to disturb Trump right now because they realize they're not dealing with I wouldn't say someone with a full deck, but they're not dealing. They have to learn how to deal with someone like that. And I think they realize that. Like the Canadian Prime Minister basically said, you know what, I don't like the guy. I think we're not going to be taken advantage of. We're going to do this, and you didn't do anything because it doesn't work. The Europeans said the same thing. In fact, all day long today they're releasing. They said I'm going to get Trump, and look what happened. You're paying 15%, and now when I say that we are paying 15%. They're not paying the 15%. You're going to pay the 15%. It's just that if it's 30%, if it's 40%, right? No one is going to pay 40%. So the higher the number, the closer they are to being kicked out of the U.S. market. That's the thing, right? I mean, depends. If it's a company like HGMH, right? They come directly and they're importing the stuff directly. That's a direct cost to them. But if you're sending it, if you're a wine merchant, you're giving it to an exporter in the U.S., you're not paying. The exporter is going to pay. Of course, the exporter and the importer, the U.S. importer might charge you for it or may not. All this is extremely complicated. Nobody's ever going to follow the whole story, but all people know is that they got 15%. And you're being told that the 15%. But then again, this is always like that, right? You are always being told what they want you to know, and it's up to you to understand what's happening. And of course, because you don't know what's happening, that is why you need to analyze what's really going on. What's really going on is Trump is making money. The goal is to make U.S. product more attractive to U.S. consumer by raising importing costs. Everything is going up. True, because if then what's going to happen, if you have a manufacturer that's here and the same, let's say you have a wine merchant from California, right? And then you have the wine from Europe. And because of the 15% that's being passed down ultimately and you're paying, you're going to say, I'm not paying for that. I'm not paying 15% more. Now, of course, if it's wine, if it's $12 and then it becomes $14, I mean, right? But when it comes to large items like a car, that is why they are concerned. That is why they want to make quiet. So the strategy right now, do you think we are moving into times where majority of the public will be paying to travel by self-driven taxi than personal automobile? That is an interesting point. That is an interesting point because that takes us into what's going on with Tesla right now. And I will tell you that there could be some major opportunity with Tesla, because when I'm looking at Tesla is up 3% today and is up to $327. Now, Tesla will be a fantastic buy at $250. Why? Because really, $50 of Tesla is the automotive business, which frankly, I don't think is not involved. I mean, the last time they made changes to the Y is so long ago. Okay. And $150 is probably the full self-driving. Of course, he's not the only one doing it. But I've seen some interesting videos and I've seen some interesting talk, and the stuff is working. And his idea is that, frankly, and SpaceX is also great. Do you know how much SpaceX is worth? I think SpaceX as a private company is worth around $300 billion. If that ever goes public, you better go on it. The point is that the stuff that is coming up is great. The only thing is, for Elon Musk, he got coerced with Trump, right? So $150 for the business having to do with the full self-driving. And if that worked, that could be very instrumental, right? Because basically, you won't need a garage anymore, right? The car will go somewhere like some place, and then you call it when you're ready to go, and then it takes you somewhere. And then when you're not doing it, you could rent your car to someone else. Is this going to happen? I don't want to do that. Hold that thought. Remember what happened with the iPhone, right? When it came out, everybody was using BlackBerry. They said, what do you want an iPhone for? BlackBerry is so much safer. We don't want it. You just rent and go on with others, yes. So you don't have a car anymore. But maybe not for this generation. But then again, look at us now with the iPhones, right? Look at us with all these things that are developed that you couldn't have before. In the past, you wanted to see a movie. Well, you want to see a movie, you go to a movie. But now people don't watch movies anymore. They're getting information from their iPhone. And frankly, I will tell you that it is much better. Why? Because you're getting real information. I mean, you have to be careful what you're listening to. But otherwise, if you're getting it from the mass media, they just, like I told you before, right? They're mostly giving you information that frankly is biased. Or not complicated enough, like you're speaking to children. I don't want to make it too complicated for them. So I'm basically going to say that Europe is going to pay 15%. Not really. I mean, yeah, technically, but ultimately you're going to pay for it, right? So going back to Tesla, what's going to happen with Tesla is that he's not in the car business anymore. I mean, he wants to be in the full self-driving. That won't come to our country for outside of. No, no, I agree. We're not ready for that yet. But it's like the iPhone, right? At the beginning, when people had the BlackBerry, people wanted the BlackBerry, and they said, iPhone. What do you need an iPhone? With what? The apps? What do I need the apps for? What do I need what do I need a phone with camera? I have a, you know what I mean? Things change, and things that you might think today, like the next house you may buy, may not have a garage, and you may not ever see your car. It only when you're ready to pick you up and drop you off, and then you just sit and do your work, and then it drops you off and pick you up. You say, no, but I like to hear the sound of the car. Yeah, right now that's your thing, but eventually all this is going to go away. Things are moving very fast, especially with AI. And that was the idea of the video that I did yesterday on AI. That basically the point there was that AI is becoming a thing. Is it like a thing like .com because it exploded like the .com? Is it going to explode at the .com? The market is very high right now. Internet broke the common reality. Propaganda is way too easy to push down. Yes, but at least now. Well, you had propaganda before, and I will tell you, each time I speak to students and to my investors, I'm looking at them and I say, guys, what are you listening? Well, I'm listening. I'm looking at the Bloomberg. I'm watching the Wall Street Journal. Why? But because it tells me, look at it carefully. Look at these things online. Right? They'll show you the news, and then they show you a chart, a stock chart. And then you're saying, oh, so the news are tied to the stocks. So if you have good news and the stock goes up. It doesn't work that way. But you wouldn't understand anything else. If they showed you the mathematical formula, the equation, the algorithm that is used by people like Jim Simmons, who made $40 billion as a hedge fund, you wouldn't understand it. Because you know what they talk about all the time, and this is what I'm trying to instill in this channel? They talk about risk all the time. Risk, risk, risk. How to price risk, where it's coming from, what is the next thing. That is what this channel is about. That's why it's called the Black Swan. The Black Swan after the book, The Black Swan from Taleb Nassim. And basically, we're looking for the next black swan. We're looking for the next thing to hit. But for you to know what's going to hit, you can't say, well, tell me what's going to hit. No, you have to understand the items. Right now, you have number 1 out of 10. You have the economy that you need to worry about, although right now it's doing great. You have the stock market. The stock market, as of today, is overvalued, I have to tell you. Now, does it mean it's going to crash tomorrow? No, it doesn't mean that. It means that if something goes bad, then it has a more propensity to collapse. But right now, I don't think so, because everything is positive. Be careful about what happened with Ghislaine Maxwell. Be careful, and we'll talk about that. The third thing is the dollar. How is the dollar doing? The dollar is weakened. Only a black swan event will force them on a Midwestern. Remember COVID? Remember, and I was there, 2008, the financial housing crisis. Watch that movie. Watch the movie called The Big Short. And watch Margin Calls. 2 great movies. And you're going to see that in The Big Short, Michael, we should see what he's doing right now. But basically, we lost the market. We lost the housing market. We almost lost the economy at that time. You may not realize it, but and then there was no liquidity. And when there's no liquidity, the market drops 50% because nobody's here to buy anything, and that's a problem. So be very careful. Be very careful of the lack of liquidity. Are we in this situation right now? No, we're not. There is plenty of liquidity. In fact, there's too much liquidity. But you need to understand it, and you need to know that you don't know. Remember what I told you. The next thing is the risk number 5 is the Powell situation. Now, tomorrow, I bet you if that guy doesn't have a heart attack by tomorrow, I'd be surprised. Because right now, Powell's got Trump on his back, and he's got two dissenting governors. Never happened since 1993. That means they're dissenting, meaning they said, we want lower rates. And why don't you lower rates? I mean, I would love to be a fly on that wall to see what kind of discussion they're having. And then they're going to say, fine, you'll keep the rates the same, but we're dissenting. We do not agree. And that is like, and who knows, maybe someone else may come through. Maybe some of them are dissenting and they don't want to talk about it. Right? Pressure is being applied on the Fed like you have no idea. So let's watch out. That should be positive at the end of the day for my subscribers. Stop lying to these people. Lying is no good. Then we have, of course, Iran versus Israel, which is risk number 6. That one is quiet right now, although they're pressuring Netanyahu to stop fighting and start signing agreement to calm the heck down because he's out of control. The thing, he's out of control, and this is where you need to know what's driving the guy. Yeah, I know he's saying he wants to help the Israeli people and he wants to stop the war and all that, but what he really wants is he does not want to go to trial because they're waiting for him. And hopefully he's done a lot of good things for Israel, and they'll overlook it. But there was some corruption charges against him. And very important that you need to understand is that they have no control over this guy. In fact, recently when he went to Syria, even what's his name? Marco Rubio said there was a misunderstanding. And in fact, there was a recent article that I saw that talks about the fact that he's out of control. Israel, where did I see this? Yes, he's. They need to rein him in. They feel that he's not. They're having difficulties controlling him, or at least he does a little bit of what he wants to do, and that's a problem for the U.S. And it was said that actually he decided the Iran thing on his own. He didn't consult with anyone, and that was a bit upsetting to lots of people. Okay. Number 7 is China. Now, China right now, believe it or not, is a big topic. They are over in Sweden. Only God knows the. Yes, I mean, only God knows the future, and I agree that we don't know what's going to happen, but at least you want to be aware of what are the things that could potentially happen. And there's enough things out there that you need to worry about all these things. China, for example, and listen, if I'm worried about it, they're worried about it too, because right now they're in Sweden meeting with the Chinese. They are meeting with the Chinese. Why? Because Trump wants to discuss. He wants to talk about what's going on with China. And I think that Chinese rare earth mineral magnet exports surge after U.S. trade, and right now Trump is changing his techniques. He wants to talk to China. Why? And this one is very difficult, I have to tell you. Okay. All the countries, yes, listen to Evolve Monkey, all the Asian countries already met with China and Australia too. The circle of Valéry Pierres, right? This area in Asia where 10% mass, but 50% of the people live there. That's a problem. Why? Because at some point, and and if I know that, I'm sure they know it too. The thing is, I think what's happening is they know that, it's amazing. Listen to me, this is important. Basically, it looks like China was on its way to learn how to build all the stuff for the past 20 years. And now that they're done, they were ready to move on and start becoming the world leader by basically saying we don't need the US anymore. We don't need their debt, and frankly, they haven't purchased debt for a while. And we don't need dollar. We have BRICS. And I could make all this stuff. I could make all the stuff. And frankly, 50% of the world is in a 10% area. So they're all concentrated. Let's do business together. In fact, Europe went there for last week actually, trying to negotiate. Be careful. The US has to be careful for long-term risks here. Why? But because ultimately, and this is what Trump was trying to do, and you don't blame me for that. You say, well, what's going on here? We're not making anything anymore. Everybody's, no. We have to start making stuff here. No. Otherwise, I'm coercing you into doing business with me because I need to stay alive. That's basically what it comes down to. Because if you don't come to eat in my pizzeria, then I'm losing business. So you're going to come and eat with me. And that's what's going to happen. That's what he's doing. It's called coercing, but he has no choice. And he does not have the time to negotiate one deal at a time. It took 3 years to negotiate NAFTA. He's not going to take 3 years to negotiate with the European. No way. And why? Because the US was in the process of losing relevancy. We're talking about the dollar, hey friend. We're talking the dollar not being the reserve currency, and that is a problem. You don't want that. You want to remain a reserve currency. And that's what Trump is doing. Trump is trying to keep all these people together, and he doesn't have that much time, health-wise, but also 2026, who knows what's going to happen? If he loses the House, it's all over. He becomes a lame duck president with Trump is going to hurt for 20 years. Well, we shall see about that. So China basically was on its way to basically do everything themselves. Rare earth minerals, 90% of the rare earth mineral production comes out of China. Forget the shoes and the sneakers and the t-shirt. That stuff. They're making batteries right now that you could charge your car batteries, electric batteries, in just as long as it takes you to fill up your gas. So what China has been a very busy little bee. Remember from Gladiator, right? You've been a very little busy bee, and that's what China's been doing. And then Trump came in and said, well, we got to stop all this right now. But in a big way, right now. Stop it. 50%, 100%, 70%, right? Whoa, what is he doing? Because we have to bring everything back to the US, otherwise we're going to lose it. You may agree with this technique or not, but he doesn't have that much time. Rare earth is not that rare. It's all about the transformation process. It's toxic. No. Yes, of course. And in the US, they have that. But not everywhere, right? And you have to learn how to do it. But 90% the US forgot how to do it. And that's why in my Patreon channel, which I think you should join to understand what's happening so I can make some money here. Just joking. I have joking because it is free for a week and something, I think, and then you have to pay. But it's almost nothing. And considering the advice that I'm giving, it's gold, really. It's a good return on your money. But basically what happens is you have Idaho Resources, which also happens to be a gold producer and a rare earth mineral. And the stock is up 40% already, including the one that the US got involved into, and I talked about yesterday. PM something. Take a look at my video on that. But there was another company that the US got involved and is doing very well. So that's what China was doing. And right now, the US, so imagine the conversation with China right now. They're coming in. China is basically saying, you want my rare earth mineral, right? You want it because you want it for your missiles, which you're sorely lacking, and you only have 1 week worth. What are you doing for me? Are you going to buy all the stuff? Because I have a huge amount of deflation. I've got 33 months of price declining. I have to sell my stuff to someone, and you have to take it. And I know that you are learning to make stuff that I should be doing, because I know eventually you're going to leave us and then you're going to do your own make China great again. You're going to close the border, and I'm going to be stuck outside with the dollar, and the U.S. is going to collapse. These are real things. So how are they going to negotiate back and forth, right? They need each other, but be careful, because if they can't come to an agreement, and China cannot unload all those products that they have, deflation is the opposite of inflation, by the way. Australia is investing in rare earth transformation. I believe so, because Australia's got huge potential, huge stuff. Okay, and it's in Asia too, so be careful. But the thing is, how is it going to resolve? The point is, now you don't deal with China the same way you deal with the European, because China is just, the guy could decide, you know what, let them starve then. I don't care. That is not something that you can deal with very easily with someone like. So, and I already said, we're not sure we're going to be able to discuss, because at the end of the day, they have different plan, right? I think ultimately China wants to decouple from the U.S. Totally decouple. They want to do their own thing. They want nothing to do with them. So that's what's going to happen with China. And they know that, and Trump knows that. So maybe, I think at the end of the day, he just wants to talk. They already said, don't expect any big thing coming out of our discussion. So they're going to be talking about it a lot, and nothing is going to happen. In the meantime, China is paying the fees. So that's what's going to happen. But ultimately, what we need to worry about is the fact that is number 8, inflation watch. Why do you need to worry about inflation? You need to worry about inflation because that is going to be a problem at some point. And it's not happening yet. And that's a good thing, because Trump wants lower rates and the market wants lower rates. And the reason they want lower rates, frankly, is because it's tied to problem number 10, which is the huge amount of debt, the $37 trillion, right? You can't every year the U.S. is paying on interest more than it is spending on defense, and that's too much. So I want you to use this channel. I want you to join this channel, please, so that you have an understanding. You have to start. This channel is not about giving you news, and it's not about telling you, buy this stock or buy this. No, this is about explaining what's happening and trying to analyze what's happening, so that when you're walking around in your day or you're looking at your portfolio, you're thinking, what else can happen? The Big Beautiful just add a lot of that. Well, we should I'll do a video on the Big Beautiful Bill, because now it's coming through. Right? There's a lot of information that's in the Big Beautiful Bill that nobody saw. Besides there's a lot of small items that everybody should be paying attention, but nobody was paying attention frankly, not even the senators and the Republicans and the House members. They got coerced as well, right? In fact, it was shown that not many of them read the 640 pages. Trump wanted it, and he got it. Now, this is something that you should learn from, regardless if you like him or you don't like him. How do you get people to do what you want to do? Well, first of all, you have to be consistent. You do not waver. You keep doing the same thing over and over and over, and you don't get personally involved. You don't get emotionally involved. Trump does not get emotionally involved. Have you ever seen him laugh? He doesn't laugh, right? He smiles and he cajoles and he likes everyone and he says how great you are in a very cartoonish kind of way. But he does not get involved. That's the only way, because did you see him when he was standing next to the Fed chair? The guy was all flustered and he was all like, upset. And he was just doing his thing, and he says, this guy is bothering me. He's checking the building codes, and this is ridiculous. Trump surrounds himself with yes and his yes. He does. That is totally true. Evolved Monkey is correct. What Trump is doing this time, he only has yes people around him. And in fact, when Tulsi and JD didn't agree with him, he got rid of them. You didn't see them for a while. In fact, you still don't see them. Now, she was allowed to come back, and there was a question during the press conference. Somebody, I think it was CNN, was a cruel thing to say. Say, oh, now you're coming back. Extremely dangerous time. Correct. Correct. Why? Because, and it's not like Trump created all these events, right? But so finishing my thoughts on the press conference, during the press conference, one of the CNN reporters said to Tulsi Gabbard, "Oh, you're coming up with this thing with Obama. Is this because you were shut out of the inner circle from Trump?" And then right away, that girl came in, the press secretary, and she said, whoa, what kind of question is this? This is ridiculous. Don't talk about things like that. That's true. I mean, we don't know exactly what's going on, but she did say that the bombing of the Iranian centrifuges only delayed for a couple of weeks. It wasn't such a big deal because she was reading that report, which was in direct contradiction. So to answer your question, he wants, yes, people around him. But if you're going to run a business and you're going to run something, you could have people questioning, but you cannot, at some point, when they say go, when they say jump, you say how high. You don't say why, right? You just jump. Otherwise, you can't run anything. And that's what happened with his first administration, right? They hit him with the Russia thing, and the people that he was getting, like that guy, the Exxon guy, the Treasury Secretary, was ridiculous. Not the Treasury, he was a Secretary of State, the Exxon guy, or whatever. And he said that Trump was an idiot. Well, listen, you get reelected twice, and then let's see if you could do it. And you get these people to pay 15%. And the thing is that you underestimated him, and a lot of people did. And now look at it. And that's why people like Rubio are really close to him now, and they know exactly how to deal with them. And frankly, they got to go along to get along. You have JD, of course. JD wants to become president, and he knows that the forces are with the MAGA movement. So whatever MAGA wants, he's going to go along with, even if it's against Trump. And then if it's against Trump, then it's a very complicated process. But Marco Rubio, I have to say, Marco Rubio is doing a great job right now because he's able to maneuver Trump and do what he's bidding and changing his ways and doing quite well. In fact, they were saying that there was a very good article about Marco Rubio. And obviously the reason why they're bringing this up is because, they want to bring him up as the next president. I am sure that is something that he's interested in doing, right? He wants to be president. Now, is that going to happen? I don't know. Anyway, so that was number 8. Number 9 is Russia. Now, Russia is a problem for Trump because he hasn't been able to deal with it. In fact, yesterday he said, I may not give them 50 days. This is not working out. And the reason it's not working out with Russia is because, frankly, Russia is now on a war footing. They have more tanks than in the U.S. And Trump really doesn't want to get into a war situation. And they all have the atomic bomb anyway, so nobody's going to be using it. So if they're not using it, the point is that it's very an uncomfortable situation they got themselves into. They don't know exactly what's happening. They're in the middle of trying to figure out how to deal with Russia. But Russia is in a war economy, and they've been building weapons at a faster pace. So when evolved monkeys says it's an extremely dangerous situation, it's going to become, because obviously, Europe is now to spend on its own weapon, and I think they were generating, what did I say yesterday? I had some interesting number. Basically, the NATO commander basically in Europe told the Senate committee that Washington expects Russia to produce 250,000 artillery shells monthly. What are you using that for? Ukraine? Okay. How much is the U.S. making? 40,000. So Russia, US, okay? I'm not even talking about Russia plus China, okay? And the US hopes to reach 90,000 rounds in 2026. Why is it so difficult? Because the US has forgotten to build stuff. Everyone else is building, and that includes a weapon. And in the weapon, you need rare mineral, rare earth mineral. Where do you find them? Well, we have to dig, and somebody said it's tough to produce. We have it, but 90% of extraction comes from China. This is what Trump was saying. He has smart people around him, and not just puppy. They think like him. Yeah, that's very important. I agree with what John says. He needs those people around him to help him, because Trump is trying to, it's his people, you know, he knows stuff that we probably won't see it, right? But basically he's saying, listen, we got to do something. These people are arming up, okay? And we need money. But more importantly, we need to learn how to do the stuff here. We cannot have all 60% of the production of semiconductor done in Taiwan. It's China. China wants to stop you making semiconductor, he invades. They wanted you to start making missiles, they don't give you any rare earth mineral. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And that's the problem. The Europeans have pledged to hit a manufacturing capacity of 2 million rounds. Basically, the European says, okay, we're going to produce 167,000. So imagine Russia is making more missiles, artillery shells, than Europe and the US combined. But they're doing it today. The others are not doing it yet. How did we get into this situation? You got into this situation because you forgot how to make stuff and you didn't think it was that important. And you rely on, frankly, taking your dollar and exporting your dollar to all these countries. And China was more than happy to get it, because what they were getting in return is the knowledge and the ability to make the stuff. But because if you think about it, China wants to create BRICS, right? Which is a separate currency technically at some point. So then what do they need the dollar for? They don't really need the dollar. They need the dollar to keep going, to buy stuff and pay their people or whatever. But more importantly, they're doing it so they learn how to make stuff. And Trump is correct when we said that the US is forgetting or has forgotten how to make the stuff. And if you don't know how to make it, somebody's going to make it for you. These are real issues. And I agree with Monkey when he says that, you know what? We have a problem. We have a situation on our hands. Russia is mass producing hypersonic missiles capable of hitting part of the US. That's never going to happen. And Europe, that's never going to happen. Though in limited numbers so far, the US is innovating with cheaper scalable drone system, but Western analysts highlight that the US must pivot towards cost-effective, high-volume, small, unnamed system. We are still fighting the war with the boats and the submarines. Instead, you should be fighting with small stuff. Look what happened with Iran and Israel. They were shooting missiles back and forth all day, right? That's what you need to do. In fact, that became a problem for the US because I believe that the 12-day war revealed alarming, and that's news, gaps in American missile stockpiles. During this conflict, the THAAD operators burned through nearly a quarter of the interceptors ever purchased by the Pentagon. And that's what Trump said, we got to stop this war. You got to stop. We can't help you. The problem is, if Netanyahu, and this is where everything ties together, if he decides to get back in there and we have to give him even more missiles, that's not going to be possible. He said, we're supposed to help Israel. Help me. Yeah, but you got to stop getting involved in these fights. I can't help you every single time. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem for us. You need to stop fighting with all these people. And of course, number 10, which is the Trump administration being in turmoil, that is itself is a risk. Meaning a risk is that Trump right now has a tremendous amount of power. Do you think that they will make a picture of coin and use that instead of the dollar to buy? The dollar is getting weak. The dollar is getting weak. Why? Because it has been debased. Why? Because the U.S. has $37 trillion, and because it is a reserve currency, what the U.S. has been doing is they've been using printing dollars to pay for the stuff. And how long is that going to last? That cannot last forever. At some point, the chicken is going to come to roost. At some point, the dollar is going to become irrelevant. And this is a very real risk. And it's bet on the United States. Of course, you should bet on the United States right now. I mean, if you look at most of the most valuable countries, private companies are U.S., public companies are U.S., the largest global market capitalization, $4 trillion. It's in the U.S. because of the system. But do not abuse the system. Be very careful, right? You can't run around with $37 trillion forever and you can't keep printing. You could keep printing, although I will tell you what happens, right? What's going to happen is at some point, if you push come to shove and the U.S. is forced in a position where no one wants to do business, the wars have been started for less than that. And when I see the amount of production that's happening in Europe, because now Europe is going to defend itself. And of course, Russia say, oh, that's how it is. When I'm going to start, and like I told you, I think yesterday, they're doing nuclear test preparedness. Now, of course, they're not going to use it. But the point is that they're testing it. And the accidents happened, right? And you can't just buy a weapon without using it. Right? At some point, you have to use it. Even if the U.S. is deceptive and corrupt, I see it too, brother, but where your money has greatest value. Why? Because the U.S. is a country that is full of laws. It's a country of laws. Maybe too many laws, but the point is there are lots of laws in the U.S., and that's what makes it, quote unquote, safe to do business with. Right? Imagine what they did in other countries, and this is when Biden made a mistake, I believe, by weaponizing the dollar against Russia, and saying, we're gonna that those Russian oligarchs, they have boats everywhere. We're gonna take those. We're gonna take your money. You can't do that. You're weaponizing the dollar. You're preventing them to be part of the SWIFT system. You can't do that. Why? Well, because what you're doing is that you're creating an environment where people don't want to use the dollar. So all of these risks, and of course risk number 11, number 10 is really the administration, and you have to be careful. It's in turmoil right now. It's in turmoil because of this thing with Epstein, believe it or not. It's not over. They met with her, they talk, and Congress said, we want her back. We want to talk to her. What is she going to say? Because whichever way it is, it's no good. If she doesn't say anything, they're going to say, oh, well, sure, she's not saying anything because they promised her something and she's not going to rat Trump out. If she says something, they're going to allow her to say it? Pam Bondi, which, by the way, where is she? Have you heard from her? Where is Pam Bondi? How come we don't hear from her? And I will tell you where she is. I believe that she's at the hospital. Where is Pam Bondi? I believe that she's in the hospital. Where is? Let me check. Where is Pam? She's at the hospital because of, believe it or not, a couple of days ago, she had a problem with her eyes. Just at the moment when they were releasing that information, she's attending local and personal. Is she in the hospital? I thought she was in the hospital. I believe she was in the hospital a couple of days ago. Because just as the news that broke on Trump and Epstein, Pam Bondi canceled a public appearance at the CPAC Anti-Traffic Summit on July 23rd, citing a recovery from a torn cornea. News sources describe it a medical issue, not hospitalization, and no hospital name was mentioned. The U.S. Department stated that she remains extremely active and available during her recovery. So the news came out just as the Epstein, and then that's it. She has not made any comments. That's what I mean. This Epstein thing is very bizarre. Are there any sanctions Trump can apply to get Putin real attention? Yes. What he can do and what he's going to do, what he's saying, he can't do anything to him personally because we don't do business with U.S. doesn't do business with Russia, but he could pressure other countries. I bet you right now he's talking to China, and he's telling China, you know what? Maybe you guys should do something about Russia, and if you keep doing business with them, then it's going to be more money. So therefore, Trump is putting pressure on the people doing business with Russia. And that is probably not the best, smartest thing to do because Russia is probably not going to like that, right? And it probably don't like the fact that you're giving weapon to Ukraine. So all these things are, and that's something that the MAGA people don't like. They do not like this. So what are we going to be talking about next? I think you're going to like it. First of all, we're going to definitely cover what's going on with the Fed because I want to see what this guy does the day after tomorrow. We're going to take a look at the investigation in Jerome Powell. What's the latest? Because they're doing a huge amount of investigation, huge amount. We're going to talk about the CPI data, that the inflation number that you're seeing are not correct. We're going to talk about European stocks. I would like you to start looking at European stocks. They're very cheap. And you need diversification because if we're losing, Orange Man, very bad. And then we're going to talk about this $1 billion sovereign fund that Trump got from Japan. That's amazing that he's able to get that kind of money. And this is what he wants from Europe. Basically, that's what he's saying. He's basically, don't come over and build anything. Just give me the stuff. Give me the cash and I'll invest it. It's even easier. Now, of course, yes, I invest in weapon manufacturing in Europe. Yes, I think weapon manufacturer definitely. That's going to be I'm going to look for some of them and put them in my Patreon channel. I think you want to do that. So we got a big week ahead. The biggest thing that's going to happen, MAGA people. So you don't want to see America great again. Let's make America great again. But you don't want to destroy everybody else in the process. That's the thing. Anyway. Let's talk about it next week. We got lots of issues this week, and watch the stock market. Should be going up. I'm not too worried about it for the time being, but worry about in the future. So I'll see you all very, very soon.